photos of everything.
Yeah.
Shoot everything. Just literally document it all. And even if it seems ridiculous, just document it. Add what's personal to you.
What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up, what up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I bring you the rebels who are shaping our culture. I'm your host, Josh Levine. This week, we're back with my co-host, Eddie Donaldson of Guerilla One. If you don't know Guerilla One, it's your connection to street art, graffiti, all things art. If you're buying art for yourself, your home, for investment, for a client, if you need to hire an artist for an event or a campaign, hit up Guerilla One or hit me up and I'll connect you. This week we're on location once again with Bagel is our guest, aka Josh Classman. We're sitting outside at the Rose Cafe in Venice. You'll hear probably some background noise, so you know we're keeping it real in Venice. Josh Bagel is a long time staple of the Venice art and culture scene. He's been carrying around his camera since pretty much the 80s, documenting Venice street skate, surf culture. He grew up with a lot of the top skaters and surfers and had access to shoot a lot of those guys, at their best, and took pictures of Venice when it was really at its prime with the Pavilion. If you're not familiar with that, you'll hear the stories. You're also going to hear some stories about, the old days in music with Porno for Pyros, House of Pain, Limp Bizkit, much, much more. Let's get into it right now with Bagel, live at the Rose Cafe in Venice. So take me back to the beginning. I know there's a lot of good stories, but do you remember the first record you ever bought?
No, I don't remember the first record I ever bought. I know the first records I was given, which were Beatles records. My dad gave them to me.
Sure.
But the first live act the first concert I ever went to was Chuck Berry at the Roxy.
Oh shit.
And my dad threw down the calendar section of the LA Times. It was pick a concert for your birthday and I'll take you to any concert you want to go to. And I was like, Chuck Berry, he was all stoked on that, And
Sure.
It was fucking awesome. I think I was 10 or 11 or
How
something.
old are you again?
I was young, 51.
Jesus, Chuck Berry.
Yeah, dude. It was
Interesting
sick.
choice.
It was dope, dude. I was because my dad raised me very much rock and roll.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's the man. He's the one that
For sure.
got rock and roll, really on the map heavily.
Definitely. That's amazing. It's funny how, we were talking about music earlier, how this, this shit all just flows together. And we think about sort of genres or, you're producing an EDM show or whatever, but we're all influenced by all the same shit.
Yeah, definitely. I love the hip hop connection with everything.
Yeah.
We were talking about sampling,
Yeah.
what they sample, and then you get into checking out. You're like, oh, it was that song.
Mm-hmm.
I was explaining to this kid who's getting really into hip hop. The past week, I told him, I was like, the difference between East Coast and West Coast hip hop is, and I gave him the whole example of East Coast is very jazz based because that's what they listen to, and you
Sure.
could hear that in their music, and it's off time, but they made it work on time. And I go, where West Coast is very funk, related.
funk.
It's very, very bounced and low and chill and blah
sure.
blah 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 blah. And I go, you could hear that within the records or the songs, and he was tripping where he's
definitely.
like, oh damn, you're right. I'm like, yeah, dude, you'll notice it now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's because, before we were listening to hip hop, we were listening to Roger and Zapp or Earth, Wind and Fire, the Gap Band, whatever, out here.
Yeah.
And then on the East Coast, it was something different.
Yeah, for
Like
sure.
Miles Davis, it's so
Yeah.
jazzy. You were talking about Eric B.
James
and
Brown,
Rakim, and I
yeah.
love them. They're my all-time favorite. Seeing them play was bucket list shit for me.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so heavily jazz based, and I'm not a
Right.
jazz person.
Right.
I don't get it. I'm not built that way. But when they sample it, it makes sense to
Sure.
me. It's super cool.
Yeah, I learned about jazz from hip hop.
Yeah, totally.
Jazz
Going
and
back into
Taz.
samples.
Jazzmatazz.
Yeah.
Like my son's all into jazz, and I'm like, wow, really? I never got into that. But he also gets that he's like, it's also in a lot of the hip hop you listen to.
Sure.
I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
the breaks.
Yeah.
Fully.
So wait, how'd you guys meet?
We've known each other from just back in the day partying on top of we toured together. When
Yeah,
were
you know
doing-
what? That's it.
That
That's
was when
it.
we
The
got like
Napster
real
tour.
close.
Was
yeah,
it the Napster
Napster tour
tour?
we
Yeah,
got
that's when
really
we
tight
got-
because we
Yeah.
knew each other.
Forgot
We're
about
like,
that Napster tour.
Yeah.
we were like, oh shit, you're on this? Cool. Like when you see people that you know,
Yeah.
you tend to
Yeah.
want to
And we were
gravitate
together like a
towards
month,
it.
right?
Yeah.
That was a month.
What was that tour?
It was Limp Bizkit,
And
Cypress Hill.
Cypress. And then and Capital I played parking lots or second rooms
Okay.
It
in
was.
some of the shows.
We terrorized that tour. That tour was nuts because there was a routing, but a lot of the times, like the venues had to drop out because they were like, we can't do this guerrilla style thing, and it's just way too sketchy. And they'd be like, okay, we have 3 days off. We're gonna be in Elko, Nevada, in some
No
shitty
doubt.
hotel, doing nothing now.
I got some
And
great stories from that tour.
It was pretty
Yeah.
wild,
Yeah.
man, how it all worked out. You were like, well, we're supposed to be here, but we might not be, or a new venue would pop up. It was very off the
Yeah, it
cuff
was-
kind of stuff.
Yeah, and Bucky was on that tour with
Yeah.
us. Were you in the room when Mad Mike smacked Fred Durst's hat off his head? You know who Mad Mike is, right? The motocross dude.
Yeah.
So I go downstairs for some weird reason. I think I was going to get some girls, and we were in a hotel in, I want to say Raleigh, and they had taken the beds out, and there was a DJ in there. I think Turner was DJing, and some girls called from downstairs, and I went downstairs, and I saw Mad Mike in the lobby, and I was working for Red Bull. And I'm like, yo, come upstairs, we're partying. He walks straight in the room, and he walks right up to Fred and fucking smacks his hat off his head.
So good.
Yeah.
Dude,
It
when
was
we were
nuts.
in Waltham, in Mass, this guy that I used to like get gigs from, he was a crew chief. He was like, hey, can you hook my sons up? They live out there and they really want to go see Limp Bizkit, Cypress Hill. And I was like, absolutely, blah,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah. So I hook up the two boys, and we end up going back to the hotel, which was like next door to the theater. And it was all the guys from Cypress and Limp, and everyone's like sort of partying, and they're there. And they're like, is it cool we're here? I go, yeah, dude, just kick it. Next thing you know, they're like smoking fatties with Be Real in them. And they were just like, oh my God, we owe you. We'll never forget this as long as you live, blah, blah, blah.
course.
So then when I got back off tour, their dad was like, how'd they like it? I go, yo, dude, they had like the time of their fucking
Yeah,
life.
for
And
sure.
what
No
was
kidding.
cool was they flowed too. They weren't like jockeying.
Right.
But like they pulled
Yeah,
me
yeah.
aside. They're like, you have no idea
Yeah,
what
how
this means
stoked we
to us.
are.
You
Yeah.
know? It was pretty rad.
My biggest memory from that too. Well, I mean, I had a bunch, but so after the show, Josh, Fred had the room where he would invite all the girls to go.
Yeah.
And you know, naturally, show's over. I go in the room to get some vegetables and ranch. Like, you know, I didn't realize it was like the girl room.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and all the sound guys and stage guys are standing at this door, and they're looking in like, "What the fuck are you doing in there?" And I'm like, "What's going on?" I think maybe you pulled me out and said, "Yo, you can't go in there until Fred says it's cool." And I was
Really?
like, "Fuck that! I'm
That's
gonna go
funny,
get me
man.
some broccoli." And then Fred came in, and everyone was waiting for him to scream at me because you know how he was on tour. It was
Yeah.
kind of a nightmare. No offense, Fred, we love you. And he walked up to me, he goes, "I like you, man." I go, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're not tripping on me. You're just doing you. You can come in here whenever you want." And I'm like, "All right, cool." You know, but everybody else was afraid to go in until Fred entered this room
I forgot that he did that whole thing. Where
that had
all
like
the chicks went
25
into the
girls
room.
in there,
Yeah.
and none of the crew could go in
Totally.
until he walked in the room.
Fucking Huber, dude.
That's so funny.
Are we exposing too much right now?
No,
with that?
hell no. There's all kinds of crazy shit that you can be told.
That's
that
mild,
fools
right?
would like be like, please don't tell that.
No,
My connection with him was weird because I met him more like in a party atmosphere and working at the Opium Den when I wasn't touring.
Oh, wow.
And he, like the crew he put together, he sort of went after people that had worked for bands that he liked. That's why like a lot of the guys had worked for Tool and Rage Against the Machine, and he knew I had worked for Jane's and Porno for Pyros.
Yeah.
And like I grew up in Venice and the whole Suicidal Tendencies connection.
Yeah, he put a squad together.
And then
like,
he
you know?
loved, like, he was enamored with the whole, like, Venice scene and skating. He tripped that, like, Aaron Murray was my roommate at the time.
Yeah.
And he was just like, dude, that's sick, blah, blah. So, like, how he could be on tour, like you were saying, it's the whole, just because someone's not an asshole to you doesn't mean they can't be an asshole. I never dealt with it because he
Yeah, he
had
knew.
respect for
Yeah,
where
no
I
doubt,
was
no
from
doubt.
and what I, like, was about over here.
Yeah.
But he used to terrorize on certain people on
that
tour.
right?
He was cool to me, too.
Like,
I mean,
you
he
know,
was-
he knew who to terrorize on and who not to terrorize on. You know what I mean? Me and him fully got along, and I loved that he loved all of this. I don't know if you guys know this, but he was one of the front runners before Catherine did it to direct the Lords of Dogtown movie.
Is that right?
And so Jeff Hohen hit me up and was like, hey dude, what's he like? And blah, blah, blah. And I was like, he's really getting into wanting to direct because he's starting to direct
do
like
the
all
films.
the indie stuff and all the like music
Oh, I didn't
videos
even know.
Yeah, he does
for
the
people that like he brought into the industry.
Okay.
And, you know, bands that he got signed and stuff like
Sure,
that.
sure.
And I told him, I was like, he'll do a really good job because he'll want to stoke everyone
Yeah,
out
he
with
cares.
it because he really is enamored with
Yeah, he
what
cares.
the scene is around here. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, not too many people know that one. And then I don't know why
I had no idea.
it didn't pan out. And then Catherine Hardwick ended up getting the director job.
I mean, it's a great movie.
I just actually dropped off prints to my friend who produced that movie, John Linson. He just got a bunch of prints from me recently.
Nice.
It was cool.
Nice.
And he also did the Runaways movie.
Oh, okay.
Same guy. And he created and wrote, I think, the first season or part of the first season of Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's like, that's
so
like his,
that's
that's
his
his
vibe.
big thing.
Yeah, for sure.
He's really cool. He's a good dude. I've known him, since I was in my teens. You know, he's older than me, but
Yeah.
I know him through like Peter DiStefano, and then that was like his crew of guys that he hung with, and they're like North Side Santa Monica guys. They would hang out in Venice, and they're all at least, I don't know, 6 years older than me or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, John's cool. But I was stoked. He ordered some really cool prints.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's talk about photography a little bit. So how'd you get started taking pictures?
I was just always interested in it. I was honestly really into like war photography when I was a kid. And I think like, I wouldn't say a lot of people would give you that answer, but I know there's people that would give you that answer, that there is something when you're younger, you think that's like a cool aesthetic. And I always just saw it as like, wow, that's nuts that person captured that.
Right.
That is like a life or death situation on top of, I've always seen the beauty and the fucked up things. And there is a beauty absolutely to war photography. I mean, there really is. I mean, as fucked up as it could be in such a horrible situation, there is this art form to it. I'd like have major respect for anyone who's an actual war photographer.
No
and
doubt.
that made me just want to go document. Like my whole thought process of photography was always on a documenting level more than an art level.
So was it like a moment when you decided like to become a photographer, or did you? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
how'd that happen?
I would say that when I was like 14 and my mom got me the Nikon camera that I still have, the Nikon FM2. I call it the OG Nikon FM2, and the Vivitar 28 millimeter lens. And she also got me a 500 millimeter for surf photos. And that was at the Venice Camera Exchange that doesn't exist anymore on Venice and Lincoln. And it was all secondhand. And that was the life-changing thing for me, where it went from like, oh, cool, picking up her Instamatic, and like, oh, this is fun, to like, okay, I want to take this serious. I'm really liking doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that was obviously the days when you got to go develop your own shit and spend a half day in the dark room or whatever.
Totally. And then
It's a different level of commitment than today.
once I got into Venice High and got to develop my own rolls of film and go buy tons of photo paper, or my homegirl Janine, I used to piss her off because I'd be like, let me borrow a piece of photo paper, because I'd rip through mine, and then I'd be like, let me borrow some. And one time, it's a great story. She's my homegirl from the Venice Breakwater. I grew up with her. Awesome photographer, Janine Guest. And one time I was like, dude, just give me another piece. Give me another, like, you have to, like, you're my homegirl.
Yeah.
And she stood up in class and she was like, eat my fucking pussy, motherfucker. Stop fucking asking me for paper. And I was like, whoa, okay, whoa. Like, I was like, damn, I didn't know, like, I was bugging you that bad. But, like, being
That's funny.
in the dark room was like 80% of the time
Yeah.
at Venice High. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
lived
yeah.
in that thing, you
Sure.
know. I loved it. I just totally geeked out of it. I couldn't wait to fucking like see the shit blown up. I could tell you that I definitely ruined rolls of film that there was probably really good stuff on that I just
Sure.
like did my little figure 8 thing,
Yeah,
opened
yeah.
it up, and it was jet black, and I'm like, whatever. And I'm like, there was probably such good shit on there.
I'm sure. Yeah, I remember that ruin, like opening the camera bag by accident or some
Oh,
shit,
yeah.
and it opens up in your backpack, and then you ruin your reel. I remember all that.
I wish I could remember like what those photos were.
But you said something, I think in one of the interviews I saw about like you were just taking pictures. You didn't really know
No, I had
what
no
you
game
had,
plan.
or you didn't
No.
know that people were going to appreciate what you were doing in that
Not
way.
at all.
Which I get, right? You're a kid and you start shooting your friends, and
Exactly.
you know,
That's what it was. It was just documenting my world and my friends, and my friends happen to be some of the best skaters in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and even my friends that didn't skate, just taking pictures of them and our scene, and like, you know, I guess you hope that it will mean something, but like when you're a kid, you're like, dude, 30 years from now, I'm gonna be dead by then.
Yeah, nobody's
You
gonna-
know, and then now
course.
I'm like, you know what? I'm glad this all happened on the back end because it means so much more, and it's looked upon in such a different way.
So when did you start to realize what you were doing and the impact that it was having?
Like the last 4 or 5 years, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, not till very recent
Yeah.
when people started contacting me, like every day. It's humbling as hell, man. It's
Yeah.
people get at me and they tell me how much it means to them, and thank you for capturing that, and it's a history, and I'm like, I'm so glad people see it that way,
Mm-hmm.
and they all know that it's a very personal take on it all.
Sure.
You know, which I like as well. Like they get that, so you're getting more intimate.
I mean, I think that's what we want, right?
Yeah.
We don't want, everyone has a camera now,
Yeah.
right? And so I can take the same picture you can, but if I don't have the same relationship to the subject,
Totally.
it's not going to mean the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I miss, like being an art dealer, is the authenticity in the shots that Bagel was able to get, because there wasn't an end game. Now everybody's like, I'm going to be a photographer. I'm going to take pictures of my friends, and I'm going to make money. And you lose that level of authenticity or keeping it real. It's like these kids nowadays, there's just no. They're a photographer 2 years, then they're a rapper, then they're a fucking director,
totally.
then they're, you turn around, you're like, fuck,
DJ.
they did everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, and when you look at Bagel's work, it's like, it's so real. You got
I
Tuma
appreciate
smoking a
that.
fucking joint, and he's 15 fucking years old.
Totally, dude.
And if you know Eric, you love Eric, and to see him in that, like that moment is priceless.
Yeah, I love that photo.
Yeah, it's great.
I think that seems to be what you're attracted to, the people that at least a lot of the people I see you work with are just cats that just started making shit for themselves or for the neighborhood or their friends.
That's right.
Nobody was really thinking about a gallery show or
I
or
say
the
it
money
all the-
they're
Not
gonna
even.
make or
I say it
NFT
all the
or
time
whatever.
when me and Josh are on business calls with people. I'm like, we're just normal dudes that just lived our life. And like, so
Yeah,
Biggie Smalls'
totally.
first show in LA was at my club. Like, I didn't know who Biggie Smalls was going to be. I was actually angry that they were late, and they, and I would have, if I
totally.
knew, I would have captured that moment.
Yeah.
I would have had the photos.
Oh man,
Nowadays,
all the
none
shit
of that goes
that
by.
we didn't think
I
to,
kick
to
myself
shoot.
in the ass for
Oh my
things.
god.
Like, okay, some of the stuff got thrown away, but then I kick myself in the ass for things that I'm like, damn, I should have shot that. Why did I just think it was going to be there forever?
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you one thing I didn't shoot, and I'm still on the fence of like standing by it, but I'm like, historically, I wish I would have. When I left for my last tour, they were just starting to tear down the pavilion, and when I came back,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
down. I didn't take one photo of it. I was so furious that they destroyed that, that
Yeah.
I was like, I won't take one picture of that. Like, I took it beyond personal.
Yeah.
Like, there's photos of it that exist. You can Google it and
Sure.
check it out, but
Sure,
I'm
sure.
like, I personally didn't.
But not from your
I
eye.
was so pissed
Yeah.
off about it, man.
Yeah, talk about the pavilion. I think a lot of people aren't familiar. Obviously, it's been gone for a long time now, and a lot of people aren't familiar with it, but I know
mean-
it's an important spot.
And, okay, so the pavilion there was an inside theater and there's a outside theater that you could barbecue, and it became a graffiti pit by the time my friends and I were teenagers and young adults.
Sure.
And it went through this metamorphosis of this like really cool community center thing to like this dilapidated, fucked up area that we just loved because we served at the breakwater and
Right.
the pavilion was at the breakwater, so it all was sort of the same thing. And then you had that oil field that was next door that was the breakwater wall that we kicked it at the beach, which that's where the skate park is now. And so it was all sort of one thing. That's why a lot of my photos, when I say like where it's at, I'll say Venice Breakwater / Venice Pavilion.
Sure.
And then the city just like let it go to shit. Like every once in a while, if there would be a gig, like they didn't use the inside at all. That was like just deader than dead. But the cool part about it was that's where the cop substation was. Basically like where it is now. And all the most fucked up things we did
Right
2 feet
next
away
to the
from the
police station.
substation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's always the big joke.
That's
And
so funny.
we'd watch the cops like just chase their tails and we're like, do, you know, like that. It was, I don't know, it just went with that era by the time we got our hands on it. You know, like I went there when I was a little kid with my mom and dad and there would be like a concert going on and there would be actual barbecuing going on. By the time we were there, it was like the bums barbecuing pigeons and it was all fucked up and just broken down. But we're like, we love this shit. Like it just went with that whole era, you know?
So let me ask you this, Bagel. Like speaking about how it was for you and you know your parents' generation and your generation. What about now, the generation of Venice?
I mean,
Like what are your thoughts on how it's changed? Because
okay.
it's definitely changed.
I can
right?
tell you this, that if you're talking about the kids that grew up here and you're talking about them as a generation, like I was saying, like a lot of my friends' sons and nephews and nieces and all that, they follow in our footsteps. They just live in a more sanitized Venice than we did, but their way of thinking is an old
Still
school
Venice.
way of thinking very much. You could definitely tell who's, like when you go to the skate park, you know who those kids are and who the other kids are, you know? And, but as far as like gentrification and all that, yeah, man, I mean, it's every day it's a battle. Every day it's worse. Every day fucking, you're like, wow, I hope that place doesn't shut down because that other place finally did, you know?
Yeah.
I walked around Venice 3 years ago and I literally walked all the way around and found every mom and pop that still exists. That it goes back to wishing I would have taken photos of certain things where I was like, I never took a photo of these places. Take photos now.
Yeah.
These places have been there for 30 plus years
Yeah.
because this shit may not exist.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I learned that lesson. So, you know, maybe that'll be worse than 30 years from now.
Yeah.
You know
I
what
mean, that's a good lesson, right? Is if it's never too late, right? And as much as you know, we can always look back with nostalgia at the past, but today is going to be our nostalgia in 30 years.
Yeah, fully. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think that's less than 30 though.
Yeah,
So
sure.
things are moving
Yeah,
a lot
sure.
faster.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think 5 years from now that shit'll be hot versus 30 because things.
That's
are
one of the biggest things I tell any person that's a photographer and sort of like, I don't know, that's one of my pieces of advice I give to them is no matter what age, I just go, hey man, like whatever you take today, tomorrow it's history. It's
Yeah,
instant
that's
history.
right.
Yeah,
So
no doubt.
shoot everything, man. Just like go nuts on it. Even if it doesn't make sense, it will at some point. Like I'll tell them, I learned that lesson. So like trust me, like I'm stoked I have what I have. But I had a lot more and I could have got a lot more. So do it, and I still do it. I make myself go out and pound the pavement and do it, you know? Like the photo that I'm giving you for Malibu,
Yeah.
I went up there because it was 2 months after the fires, and I went up there and I was like, this is interesting, man. Like, you know, you don't see it like this. And it was all this destruction, and then what my friend had told me about the specific photo of the yucca plants coming out, like he's like, you know, that's because of the soil, because the ashes, and it's, you know, new growth is coming up. And I'm like, damn, glad I went up there and shot
Grabbed that.
you know,
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm like, that's cool that he schooled me on that, you know. But as far as, really quickly, sorry, but as far as the younger generation and battling what's happening around here, they definitely do they do because they keep the soul alive. Like it's getting more and more enclosed.
Right.
It's harder to find what makes this place cool still, but you can find it if you know where to look. I always say that, and like these kids grew up here, they know where to look and where to find it. Yeah. You know, it's the wink and nod of like, we're going to the place you motherfuckers don't know about. Yeah. You know, it still exists, but you know, it's a battle, dude. It sucks, man. I don't know why people want to suck the soul out of a place and sanitize it, that wasn't what it was about to begin with, to make people think an area is cool. And you're like, why would you want to do that, man? Like, once you make it sanitized, it's a wrap.
I think it's the same thing.
Funky enough, you know?
I think it's the same thing we were talking about, right? Of like listening to the hits without understanding the samples, without understanding where all the shit came from.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, you don't have to fucking have a music history degree to turn on the radio and enjoy the songs. But that doesn't mean you get it.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I think it's the same with Venice, right? And like, you know, Venice to me, I don't live in Venice, I live in the Marina, but like, I've always been fascinated that like this tiny little, it's not even a city, right? It's a
so
little
small.
Tiny village. That's
Little
had
beach
such
town.
Small
beach town in the big city.
Such a huge impact on the entire world, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about this yesterday. The reason that there's a skate and surf shop in every city on the planet is because of Venice.
Oh yeah.
Right, and we exported culture everywhere, it's attractive. People want to experience it, but they're going to experience it through their lens, right?
Yeah, totally.
Which is safe, and sanitized.
Yeah.
If that's who you are,
That's
then
how
that's
you
how
see
you're
it.
gonna see it.
It is a like how you brought up the fact that like it's a trip how like tiny it is, and it's made such a big impact. That's one of the definite bragging rights here. It's like,
For sure.
Yeah, dude, we're like, we get that, and like we do love putting it in the face of others. And like, dude, you can fucking hate us. Like, we love to be hated.
Sure.
And people secretly love this place, but they hate us. They love the place, they hate the people.
Sure.
And we're like, cool, dude, fuck you too. We're like, that's why we are the way we are. We love it if you hate us.
Yeah, but
you don't have what we have.
Yeah, that's
and
what
that's
it is,
what
though.
pisses you off. And it goes back to what we
for
were talking about of like Hawkeye versus, fucking Frank Burns. You're like, yo, dude, you're those dudes. You know what I mean? And you're just pissed off because you didn't grow up in this and you saw from the outside looking in, and then you want to be like shitty to us because of that, and then you get really bummed when we strike back. You know what I mean? Like, I always say we're not underachievers in Venice, we're underdogs, and we bite back extremely hard. You know, and that's true. Yeah, it's true, man. That's definitely how it is. And like to this day, like back in the day, everyone was like, why the fuck would we want to go down there?
Right.
And we're like, because it's fun as fuck. That's why. Now everyone's like, we're down to go down there. I'm like, yeah, because it's safe now.
Right,
you know? Like,
exactly.
Fuck you, dude, you know?
That's funny. So when you're a kid and you start taking these pictures, right, and you have access to a culture that an outsider, if I was a photographer and I just came in, a lot of those kids, they wouldn't. So did you ever think about, like, was there shit that you didn't shoot because you didn't want to, because maybe you didn't want that on film?
Nah, not really. Nah.
Okay.
No, I honestly, I wish I would have had more photos of that because my camera probably just wasn't on me.
Sure.
And I missed great opportunities. You know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff I missed just because I had my camera on me a lot, but there was tons of times I didn't want to lug it around, and I'm like, God, I should just had it on me every second of the day, you know?
Yeah.
And then there was, truth be told, there's a lot of times that I just didn't trust myself. Like, my friends and I used to rage hard, and I'm talking like just get hammered, blacked out drunk when we were teenagers and young adults.
Yeah.
And not once did I ever go, I'm gonna bring my camera.
Yeah, it's hard to hold on to the camera.
Take pictures of this cool thing we're gonna do, because I'm like, dude, I'll break it or lose it.
Yeah,
And that's why, like, I never ever once brought that particular camera on tour with me.
Yeah.
Because when I was touring, I was just like, oh, this is- dude, I'll just get hammered on a day off and fucking fuck it up or something. Yeah. And most of my touring shots are all just fucking throwaway cameras.
What was your first tour?
Porno for Pyros.
Uh-huh.
In 1996.
You used to live with them?
I lived at the Shangri-La for about, I want to say it was like 6 months. So my son's mom and I were together at the time. She just found out she was pregnant. We're like the typical story, LA story. We're living on Pacific Avenue. I had just got laid off from my job bartending at the firehouse across the street.
No shit.
I was doing construction, but it wasn't really paying the bills. She didn't have a job. She just found out she was pregnant. We were behind on rent. We ended up getting evicted. And Perry and my friend Roger Leonard were like, hey man, why don't you come up to the Shangri-La? Like, put your stuff in storage. Come on up. Have free rent. We have the place for a few more months. We have a chef. She can eat well. She's
Nice.
pregnant. You know, blah, 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 blah. You could go do construction. So we moved up there. And it was funny because I'm like so stubborn with it. Like, I literally drove into Venice every day. Like, I was just like, I'm hanging my hat there for a minute, but I'm coming back home every day. And then I would go to the valley to work construction, and they saw me just like get up early morning every day and be gone all day long. And then they finally were like, hey man, when this album's done, would you be interested in stage managing? Because I was like, how do I get in this industry? Like, I don't want to do construction.
Of course.
And I was like, what can I do? Is there something I can do, something I can learn? And I was very like enamored with like, whoa, this is new. And they're like, yeah, dude, well, you could be our stage manager. And my friend Sean London, who I had just met at the time, they're like, he'll teach you how to stage manage as it goes along. And they just like, it was a baptism by fire. They're all go. And I just did it and learned as I went. I was like, I want to do this because I see this as my way out.
Yeah.
And then like very shortly, we're back in Venice. Once that pad went away, I was able to save money. And I wasn't stage managing yet. I was still doing construction.
Right.
I didn't start touring until we like moved back to Venice because the album came out months later because they were recording Good God Search up there. I also sang on the song Freeway, but that was before her and I went up there.
Nice.
And then I didn't know like the whole history of the Shangri-La. Like I didn't realize like Robbie Robertson.
I don't know it either.
Okay, so it's an old brothel from back in the 50s, I want to say, that like Hollywood types would go up to get away and not be seen in Hollywood, and they could do their thing. Then somewhere it turned into a recording studio, like a house recording studio.
That's the one in Malibu, right?
Yeah, and that's the one that's in the movie The Last Waltz, where all the interviews are being told, like the opening scene where he's like playing pool. That's that pool table, and the band owned it. Robbie Robertson and the band, and that's where they did their recordings, and that's where that whole film is being. Like they walk by our room and Perkins' room and all that. And the whole recording area is sort of like, it's still the big recording area. Tons of bands have recorded there, like tons.
Sure.
Didn't Bob Dylan? Didn't the bus? Like there's a little bus studio that Rick built or somebody built.
Right. So Rick owns it now. He did that docu-series on Showtime or something. What's cool is, so I have pictures. I have really cool photos of them like practicing in the kitchen. And just like real random shots of the whole place. And there's a plaque, not really a plaque, but it's like the letters spelled out the band, and they put it in cement. Oh, cool. And Rick Rubin had that jackhammered out, and he has that like hanging up. Oh, nice. And it's like, cool dude, stoked you like did that. That's like the historic part of that. And so that's my whole connection with that place and Porno for Pyros and my start in the music industry. It was just sort of like we're talking about, there's guys that like, I did crew in high school, and then I went to college to learn lighting and blah, 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 blah. And they hate guys like me. They're like, oh damn, you were friends with the band that just went for it? It's like, dude, like, oh well, fuck you
Yeah,
too
no
if you
doubt.
don't like it. You know, like, hey man, personality goes a long way, and so does hard work.
Yeah.
Because most of those other dudes are like the dudes that you would not hang out with outside of work at all. You know, you're like, oh, you're that guy. You know, and they're just like haters on it. You know.
Yeah.
That's all they have within the four walls of that work. And I'm like, yo, dude, I have this whole life outside of work and did way before this. And I'm sort of a dick when it comes to really putting in those kinds of people's faces the fact that me being from Venice got me in that industry.
Sure.
Me being from Venice is what got my photos seen. And I know it's something I constantly say, but I'm also someone that beats a dead horse like crazy because I do like to fucking piss off certain people with that kind of stuff. And I know that I'm doing it, and I'm like, and what the fuck are you gonna do?
Right.
Like, sorry, dude. Sorry that your life wasn't as cool as mine, and you grew up in some place that was lame, and fucking you got in an industry that you thought made you cool, but you're not.
Yeah.
You know, and they hate it. Like, I'm all, dude, if I wasn't in that industry today, nothing would change. You know, with who I am and my background. It all starts here first. You know, I'm very prideful with that.
I mean, I think there's something about that flow.
Oh, totally, absolutely. That is definitely, flow and style are a major thing here, and that's what is
Sure.
drilled into your fucking head, and we're all about it for sure. And my dad was someone who was very much all about that kind of vibe too, and it made sense that he like loved living here. Same with my mom, but my dad was more about it, where he like sort of drilled that into my head, like, watch that guy skate and watch that guy surf, and this is like, see how smooth he is, and blah 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 blah. And my dad didn't even surf and skate, but he loved that I did, you know. And my friend Brian, may he rest in peace, he used the word flow a lot. He loved that word, and I'm like, that's what it is, dude. It's all flow and style, and if you don't have that, then fucking, you're just the other people.
You're
You know what I
lame.
mean? You're a lame, dude.
You're a fucking lame.
You know, you don't get it. You're the uptight person. You know, that you know the technical shit.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not all about that, you know. It's just about the, I don't know, the natural ability. You know, I don't sit there and go, I have the greatest eye ever, but I'm stoked that I have a good eye, and I'm stoked that people see it, because sometimes people see things I overlook.
Sure.
Because it's your photos.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, it's like when people tell me the way my photos make them feel is the way other people's photos make me feel. Like, I'll be like, oh my God, that photo, I'll geek out on it. It can literally be a picture of the same thing.
Yeah.
But like with yours, I'm always sort of like, oh, I wish I would have, or
Of course.
you're
too close to
it's
it.
too, exactly. And
Yeah.
so I really appreciate when people do tell me that, because I'm like, man, that's cool to know that they see that and that
Yeah.
it means something, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so.
I mean, that's like, I think, an important, to be able to take that in, right? Because we all are too hard on ourselves.
Fully, absolutely.
Right.
I'm like crazy hard on myself in all kinds of ways, but like, I love the photo, like that photo of two of us smoking a joint. Like, I go, that is now my new favorite photo of mine if I had to pick one. That one has just become my favorite. But what it means to other people, I'm like, oh damn, that's like what they'll tell me. I'm like, that's so cool. Like, I look at it differently. I'm like, that's my friend smoking a joint. It looks like, to me, the cover of one of those old time magazines, it's like, marijuana gateway drug. Do you know what your kid's doing? But people don't say that. They go,
Right.
it reminds you of when I went down there and I
Yeah,
did
for
this.
sure.
Or the first time I was, you know, I went and got acid down there, and like, it brings all that up.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's super cool, because I don't see it that way, because I grew up around it. Of
course.
I wouldn't say we're jaded from it, but you definitely,
When you see it every
needs
day.
something different.
Yeah, absolutely.
God, this coffee has me just fucking through the roof.
Rocket fuel.
It's full on.
What are you shooting these days?
As in, like, gear or just
No.
in general?
Yeah, just like,
What do you take
what kind
photos
of stuff are you taking pictures of?
Well, like I said, I walk around the neighborhood. I take pictures. I take pictures of all kinds of stuff around the neighborhood, like certain like posters, like the anti-Bonin posters. I don't know the person who makes them, but they are the shit. So like anytime I see them, I'll run home and grab my camera and I'm like, I gotta get this.
That's funny.
Like I said, old establishments that still exist around here. I've taken my camera to certain events and I have shot the load-ins and the loadouts. I don't shoot the event. I just strictly shoot the before and after because it's the gritty part and it comes off well with the film. And I've
that's cool.
taken portraits of certain people that I work with and stuff like that.
Blue collar shit, huh?
Yeah, fully.
That's right.
The skating stuff. I take photos down at the skate park, but it's more of like the kids that I know. And it's more of like, hey dude, let's shoot on this day. I don't go down constantly and do it. It's like, I like it. It's just not something that I'm super amped on. I'm amped on the kids that I know and seeing how sick they rip. And I know that they like getting like an old school type photo from me where it's like, it looks old instantly because of the film and the camera and all that. And so I get stoked that they're like, yo dude, I want one. I want you to shoot some photos of me and on film. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And just stuff like that, just documenting and preserving, every once in a while something crazy will happen and I'll just either be lucky
happen to be there.
Have my camera or like I said, run home and go get it.
Dude, that's interesting that you said you shoot the load in and load outs because when we started taking Red Bull to Coachella, we took it to him, not to the bands.
Yeah,
let the bands go get it. We're feeding the crew.
Oh, dude,
because it's fuel. And our first place was like dropping cases off to the stage guys. Because those are the guys putting in the work and that we really appreciate it.
Dude, we were
and that goes to that flow and that soul. Yeah, but that goes to the flow and the soul of
totally,
shit, the people making this happen. Not the guy that's getting overpaid to come sing for fucking an hour.
Totally, dude.
We did that too.
Yeah.
Our first place was like, here, Bagel, here's 3 cases. Load them up in a barrel.
We would rip through Red Bull.
Of course.
Dude, we would just be like, it'd be like 1,000,000,000 degrees out and shaking. And I'm like, what is this shit?
I'm
like,
sorry, dude.
yo,
I'm
dude,
sorry.
get the next band on. And everyone would just be out of their fucking minds.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
My production manager, Westy, would be like, yo, dude, like, you can't drink that many.
Can't drink 4 of those.
Dude, these go down so easy when they're like completely iced. And he's like, dude, you gotta stop.
Definitely not for hydration.
Yeah, fully,
you know what I'm saying?
dude, totally.
You will OD for sure.
Fucking hero.
I remember one year, Anheuser, or somebody came out with that, whatever it was called. It was another competing energy drink.
Oh, yeah.
And they dropped off 2 pallets at Coachella. We dropped off 1. Ours was gone because crew was just coming and sucking it up in like 2 hours. And the last day of Coachella, which I think it was only 2 days at that point, all that other energy drink was still sitting there.
Damn.
Both pallets. It was like half of it was
crickets.
gone. Yeah, and our shit was gone in like 2 hours. Me and Oli were like, fuck, what happened?
That's I get to do that one. Me and a bunch of my friends I work with, we do the whole like, dude, we've been to Coachella when it was 2 days, and then we remember when it went to 3. And I remember we're like, how in the fuck are we gonna survive a 3rd day? And then we just finally got used to it. Yeah, and then they're like,
now it's
2 weekends,
Stagecoach.
and we're like, how are we gonna survive 2 weekends? You know, and then you just eventually you're just like
more Red Bull.
AMs and PMs, dude. You just do it. Lots of caffeine. Tons of caffeine. Funny, man.
That's amazing.
But yeah, like that's a lot of what I shoot. I definitely want to start taking my camera again now that the pandemic's eased up and we're back doing concerts and events. I want to start shooting the before and after. I'm really lucky more with the Insomniac camp where like Pasquale and Forrest, they really have always backed my photography in a very cool way. And so they don't trip that I take photos of the before and after and it doesn't get in the way of my work. And I want to start taking more of that because I didn't really do that when I first got in the industry years ago.
I think we should plan a show called Load In, Load Out.
Right,
and all
fully.
it is fucking trucks, and equipment.
There's just no gig. People just watch you work.
Sweaty ass dudes at 4 a.m. loading equipment.
Just pissed off. Like 16 hours. You're like, this sucks. Classic.
That'd be cool.
I just did Rolling Loud,
Uh-huh.
and that's like the one hip hop show that Insomniac
Right.
does with the Rolling Loud guys. Like
Yeah.
they do it together,
Yeah.
and it pissed rain on us on the load-in.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
it super pissed rain on us on the loadout. Like brutal.
Yeah.
Fucking, we're just like, dude,
And it
we
didn't
just
rain the
get
whole weekend?
so done. And the whole weekend was fine. And,
In and out,
and
yeah.
I kept going,
Yeah, I remember.
do we need any more proof that God hates production people? Like, the weekend was just fine, but the load in and load out was just brutal, man.
So Pasquale gave me tickets for my kid. He knows this, and he's like, "Tell your daughter to come see me. She can get on stage." And she was too shy.
Oh, wow.
He was like, "I can't do that." And I'm like, "Why not? It's my boy. Like, just
Right.
call him."
Right?
That show's wild, dude. It's the only one we do where we have 2 stage managers. And because it just gets nutty, and it's a whole different animal, dude.
Yeah.
It is like
Hip-hop
so
is a whole different
beyond
animal.
the opposite of EDM. You're just like, whoa, dude, this is fucking nuts, dude.
But I was excited when I saw that they had done that deal because, you know, hip hop, usually the production's not great.
Yeah,
And, you know, Pasquale is
they go
definitely
big
like,
on that one, man.
yeah, for sure. And so that's you know, it's a best of both worlds.
We did one in New York a couple years ago. At what Mets was it? Where the Mets play?
Shea.
Yeah, and Eric B was there on my stage,
nice.
and I went up to him and I did the like, I never do this. I just saw you in LA like a month ago. It was a bucket list thing. Can I take a picture with you? And he's like, fuck yeah. And I was like, fuck yeah,
Nice.
dude, that was the shit.
That's cool.
I had Fat Joe. He ended my stage out there. And
Okay.
so a whole weekend of super unprofessional acts being dicks,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So Fat Joe's tour manager comes up to me and he's like, dude, like my size, short dude, sort of same demeanor. And he's like, look, man, we're super professional. I have my people in check. We run on time. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay. And I'm thinking in my head, like, yeah, sure.
Right.
They come up. They have a mob of people with them. They come up on the stage, perfectly on time. The tour manager looks at their crew of people and he goes, not past that line. And there's like, you know, it's like where the two decks meet. There was this, like the little line. No one walked past it. Joe went up there and fucking
Oh, yeah, he's a
crushed
pro.
it. Like absolutely crushed it and schooled everybody and ended perfectly on time. I could not stop thanking them. I was like,
Yeah,
dude, you guys were like the shit after 3 days of a crazy fucking gig. I was like, you are the fucking shit. They're like, we told you we're pro, and I shook their hands. I'm like, that was amazing, dude.
But that's what we were talking about, right? Like, he's been in the game so long.
Yeah, it's business to them.
Right.
You know, they know, like, the young dudes don't get that.
course.
And you see that. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, you don't get you're not going to get your money if you don't do shit the right way. And the older guys are like, we're making our money, dude.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know?
You get in, get out.
No, I think we see that. I'm sure you see that with skaters.
Oh, yeah,
I think,
for sure.
You know, you see it with artists, right?
Yeah, some.
They, you know, at some point you figure out it's a business too. And
Yeah.
we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
it's just a
shit.
business,
Right.
Well, Jane's Addiction in the background.
Never heard this song only
Yeah,
1,000
no.
times.
you know, we were talking about that earlier. Like, if it's just a business, that's not great.
Yeah.
But it is a business too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's something, you know, it takes us a while to figure that out and figure out how to do it.
But I think it takes people a while, and you could definitely say, I'm sure all the hip hop artists feel this way when they first start, to artists as well, like you were saying, to be comfortable with the business aspect of it,
Yeah.
you know, and be like, you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to be like, I just want to make tons and tons of money because I'm in this for the money. Like,
Right.
if you do that,
Yeah, nobody wants to fuck with that
yeah,
person.
get the fuck out if that's it. If you have no passion with it, but like, yeah, you should also have your self-worth and, you know, and like embrace that as well.
For sure.
You know, and I get that, and like I think that all those hip hop artists, they get that at some point, because anytime I've ever been to a hip hop show or worked one, the old school artists are always the ones that
Yeah,
like
always
they
get
got their shit together. Dude, I had Wu-Tang at Coachella.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I had them with a 50-piece orchestra, and we were like, there's no way we're getting the whole Wu-Tang here at 6 a.m. for sound check. Dude, every fucking single one of them were there at 6 a.m. for sound check. They handled,
Amazing.
thanked us, and bailed. And we're like, damn it. My friend Westy was like, that's because they're pro, dude. This is,
they're
you know,
also
this is their
50
business.
though.
You know what I mean?
Let's acknowledge they're old.
Yeah, it
You
takes
know,
a while
we're
to
grown,
get to that
grown-ass
point.
men.
Absolutely.
I don't know, dude. Like, when it was Meth and Red, there was like some shows on that tour that like one or the other didn't show
Yeah,
up. You
for
know what I
sure.
mean? They still
sure.
like, yeah, it was still a thing.
Well, they were in their
even
30s at that
Yeah,
point,
dude.
right? And they were still
For
like,
sure.
you know.
I remember
think-
my production manager, Chris Gratton. Chris was like,
Yeah.
it's always a crapshoot if those dudes are going to show up or not. I'm like, really? And then on tour, I was like, oh, damn. Like,
Yeah,
you
now
weren't
get
kidding,
it.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you get it.
No, I think you gotta learn some of those lessons for yourself.
Yeah,
you know, it
for
takes
sure.
time.
Absolutely.
Think about that. What do you tell young photographers that you meet?
Okay, well, one is take photos of everything.
Yeah.
Shoot everything. Just
Yeah.
literally document it all. And even if it seems ridiculous, just document it. Add what's personal to you.
Mm-hmm.
On the technical end, I don't tell them shit. I'm like,
Sure.
you figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's you're shooting film or digital. This is what I use.
Right.
I also do not hate on digital.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much an old soul and I'm very old school with things, but I also do not hate digital. I love the instant gratification.
Of course.
I just personally don't really shoot a lot on it. I choose to do what works well for me and what I'm comfortable with,
Yeah.
and that is with my original camera and Tri-X 400 film and all that. But like, I don't hate on it, and I understand that, you know, the newer generation gravitated to that and they shoot with that. There's also a lot of younger guys and girls, men and women that are going out and buying film cameras and shooting
right?
film. And so I always just told
Nice.
them, this is the film I use and this is why,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's a grainier documentary style, you know, type of film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but let me ask you a question. Who's your favorite photographer?
I mean, locally, the person I looked up to the most photo-wise here was my friend Steve Schulp that I was telling you about earlier. He has great archives. He just chooses not to really break them out that much, and I've begged him. He's got a lot of cool surf shots, and a lot of
nice.
them are black and white.
Oh, cool.
That's the other thing I was gonna say, just off subject really quick, is if you look at my photos or his photos, a lot of us around here, even though we have skate and surf shots, they're shot very documentary. They're not shot as what a typical skate
It's
shot
like
is.
action.
Yeah,
sports,
it's
yeah.
very
Shot.
documentary,
Yeah,
and like with
sure.
mine, I pulled back a lot because I wanted you to see the background,
Yeah.
and that was one thing that I was very mindful of, was get it all in,
Mm-hmm.
pull back, don't go too close, you know. As far as like famous photographers go, I really like that guy, Bruce Davidson.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, dude,
Yeah.
his shit is
He's a portraits guy.
Dude, his shit is amazing.
Nice.
He's the one who shot the Beastie Boys.
Oh, okay,
It's-
yeah.
Or he didn't shoot the cover, but they used an old photo.
Uh-huh.
I went down the rabbit hole one time with his photos, and I mean, he has these pictures that it's like stories within stories. You see, like, he's definitely was mindful of getting things that you don't see right away.
Nice.
He took this one photo up from like a window, looking down, and at first you look at like the person walking on the sidewalk, but then you notice there's like this sort of creepy dude looking out the window of the person on the sidewalk.
that's
and you're
cool.
like, whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, Bruce Davidson, man, his stuff's great. Like, he followed these this greaser gang around.
Okay.
And he took photos of them and just like literally just stuck with them.
Oh,
and
nice.
Took all these photos. They're super cool. You know, it's like that whole, you know, sleeves rolled up and the cigarette
Sure,
pack
sure.
and the chick's got the scarves on. And there's this great photo where there's this older black couple in the back of a bus, and there's three of the like greasers in the back with them, and like it's like a friend and a couple, and they just look so shot out, like they had been partying all night, and it's really telling because you're like, they're in the back of the bus at the time they didn't have
Yeah,
to be,
yeah.
but they're like, yo man, like fucking, we're down with you, we're gonna sit
let's
back
chill.
here. Yeah,
Sure.
it's a really cool
Ah,
photo,
that's cool.
super cool.
Nice.
He also covered a lot of the across the country, a lot of the civil rights stuff, like tons of it. He took the famous photo of the kid that has vote across his forehead.
Yeah.
It's an amazing picture.
Nice.
Really cool stuff. He's got really scary photos of like people eating at a counter, and there's like redneck white dudes like surrounding them, you know, kind of shit. There's a famous one where this young black woman's like eating breakfast, and this white woman's next to her just looking at like the most fucked up look.
her.
I mean, this guy just fucking got the best photos for that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
Did you see that picture of my mom at the sit-in in Louisville?
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
That I posted on the internet?
Yeah.
So my mom got arrested when she was 16, sitting in the first sit-in in Louisville in a white restaurant.
Yeah.
36 kids got arrested. She was
crazy.
Muhammad Ali's cousin.
Crazy.
And it's
Crazy
amazing.
that like it's not that long ago.
Yeah,
too,
for
when you
sure.
think about it,
Not
man.
at
It's
all.
Sure.
so nuts, dude.
Absolutely.
Absolutely nuts.
All right, I got. Let's do a quick lightning round before we let Eddie get out of here.
Okay.
What's your favorite city to travel to?
Jesus, that's a loaded question.
Venice.
I don't travel.
No, you don't
I
travel.
wake, I wake up to it. Honestly, man.
Palm Springs.
No, hell no.
La Quinta, or what
You know
is
what,
it?
man? Hawaii.
Oh yeah.
You know what I
That's
mean? Like
fresh.
the North Shore of Hawaii, I don't go enough.
Sure.
But man, it is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I would
Nice.
say, because I don't get to go to it enough.
Who's your favorite DJ?
A toss-up between Eric B. and Muggs.
Dope. Both dope. What's the last great book you read?
The Sam Giancana book.
Oh yeah. I haven't read it. It's a great story though.
He was gnarly. It's a pretty
Yeah,
heavy
for sure. I'm gonna look that one up. What movie do you think you've watched the most?
Apocalypse Now.
Okay.
All-time favorite. First time I saw it was like right after it opened, and my dad took me to Cinerama Dome to see it, and it was a life-changing theatrical experience. It was in Sense-Around, the whole thing, and I was just floored by it. I have watched it every which way.
I was just reading some book about how that movie like almost broke the studio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was like all kinds of crazy shit. There's
Yeah.
a documentary called Heart of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse, all about that.
Oh, really?
It's amazing. Dude.
Okay.
Absolutely amazing.
Who's somebody that you haven't met that you've learned a lot from?
Bruce Davidson.
Good one. Okay, if I worked for you, maybe on a stage, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
You're fucking killing me. And there's about 1,000 people that would tell you that's what I would say. You're
sure.
fucking killing me.
I mean,
And
that's what it's like
be
out there.
15 minutes early, because being 15 minutes early is on time. But that's like, everyone should be telling you that in that industry.
Yeah.
But you're fucking killing me is definitely number one. There's people that do imitations of me saying that.
Is that right?
And I'm like, I don't even battle it. I go, yeah, it's deserved.
That's hilarious. Dude, thanks for doing this, man. It's so much fun talking to you.
Thank you. And thank
Great
you for
stories.
hooking it up,
Eddie,
homie.
Bagel.
as
Love you,
always,
Yeah, man.
my man.
I appreciate it. Thank you for
Nah,
the
this
coffee.
is dope, man. Yeah, for sure. Yo, that was Bagel on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, wherever you like. Leave us a comment, a review. Let me know who you'd like to see on the show next, or don't. Most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.